5.9 liters, 6 cylinders, 12 valves, a mechanical fuel pump you could adjust with a screwdriver. No computer, no exhaust after treatment, no sensors between you and the fuel. That's not a prototype from an engineering museum. That's the engine Dodge put into every heavy-duty pickup it sold from 1989 to 1998. Cummins built it. Ranchers and owner-operators ran it past 500,000 miles without a rebuild, and in more than 10,000 documented cases, past 1 million. Then, starting in 2007, the federal government required every diesel truck sold in America to carry an exhaust system that actively fights the engine under load. A filter that clogs while you're towing, a fluid injection system that shuts the truck down if a sensor fails, and nobody has towed the same way since. To understand why a 30-year-old pickup with 160 horsepower can still out-tow a brand new truck with 3 times the power, you have to understand what Cummins put under that hood and what the industry took away. The company had been building diesel engines since 1919 when a self-taught Indiana mechanic named Plessy Cummins convinced a local banker named William G. Irwin to fund a venture building oil-burning engines in Columbus, Indiana. Plessy had no formal education past 8th grade. He'd built his first steam engine at 11. By the 1930s, he was driving diesel-powered cars into the Indianapolis 500 and piloting Cummins trucks coast to coast on less than $12 of fuel. By the 1980s, Cummins was the largest over-the-road truck engine manufacturer in the world, heavy duty, Class 8, but they had never built a diesel small enough for a pickup truck. The engine that changed that was the 6BT. And here's the thing, it wasn't designed for trucks at all. The 6BT started life in 1984 as an agricultural engine built through a joint venture with Case and Farm Equipment. Tractors, sprayers, wood chippers. It was overbuilt by design because agricultural equipment sits in dust and heat and runs at load for hours. Cast iron block, forged steel crankshaft with induction hardened journals, forged steel connecting rods that would later prove capable of handling 4-digit horsepower, 6 cylinders in a line, 102 millimeter bore, 120 millimeter stroke, peak torque at 1600 RPM, built to pull, not to rev. Chrysler was desperate. Their truck division was losing to Ford and GM so badly, they'd tried Perkins and Mitsubishi diesels and failed to reach mass production with either. Ford had the 7.3 liter IDI. GM had the 6.2 liter Detroit diesel. Dodge had nothing. And then someone at Chrysler asked a question that shouldn't have worked. What if we put a tractor engine in a pickup truck? In 1989, Dodge Ram D250 came with a Cummins inline 6 producing 160 horsepower and 400 foot-pounds of torque. Neither Ford's nor GM's diesels could match that torque figure. 18,000 sold in the first year. A tractor engine with no electronics and no glow plugs shoved into a pickup by a company that was losing so badly and had already failed with 2 foreign diesels. And it saved the entire brand. If you're already wondering how you replace something this simple with something that shuts itself down on a mountain pass, you're about a decade ahead of where the story goes. What made the 12-valve Cummins different from every diesel truck engine that came after it wasn't the iron ore displacement, it was the fuel system. And this genuinely rewards understanding. The heart of the P-pump era 6BT was the Bosch P7100 inline injection pump. 6 individual plunger and barrel assemblies, one for each cylinder, driven off the engine's camshaft gear. The P7100 pressurizes fuel internally and drives it through 6 high-pressure lines to 6 mechanical injectors, spring-loaded nozzles that open when fuel pressure overcomes the pop-off threshold. No computer dictates when to inject. No sensor measures rail pressure. The camshaft rotates. The plungers compress fuel. The injectors pop. Combustion happens. Every parameter, timing, quantity, governor speed is set by physical components inside the pump. You could adjust the maximum fuel delivery with a screwdriver on the back of the housing. Mechanics called the P7100 the holy four-barrel of the diesel world. Reliable past 200,000 miles on the original injectors, capable of supporting 600 rear wheel horsepower without internal modification. A fuel system designed in the 1980s that outperformed the electronics that replaced it. For towing, this mattered enormously. Under sustained load, pulling a trailer up a grade for hours, mechanical injection delivers fuel at a rate determined by throttle position and engine speed, period. No torque management software deciding you're asking too much. No exhaust back pressure sensor telling the ECU to pull fuel because the particulate filter is full. The engine runs at the load you ask for as long as you ask for it, and the only limit is the thermal capacity of the iron. The engine wasn't fighting its own exhaust system. It was just burning diesel. The trade-off was emissions. The P7100 made power and made soot. By modern standards, the exhaust was filthy. By the mid-1990s, the EPA was already tightening the standards that would eventually make this fuel system illegal. But the trucks were towing. The fuel system was unkillable. And that brings us to 2007, the year the federal government decided this engine needed to be fixed. The engine that, by every operational measure, was not broken. The killing happened in regulatory phases, each one adding hardware between the engine and the tailpipe that the original designers never anticipated. Mid-1998, Cummins replaced the mechanical 6BT with the electronically controlled ISB. The VP44 injection pump brought electronic fuel control and electronic failure modes. Pump failures common enough to define the generation. Common rail arrived in 2003. More power, cleaner combustion. The 2003 to 2006 5.9 liter was the last Cummins diesel in a Ram without exhaust aftertreatment. The last one you could tow with and not think about what was happening behind the turbo. Then 2007 hit. EPA standards required a diesel particulate filter to trap soot and enhance exhaust gas recirculation to cut nitrogen oxides. The PDF catches particulate in a ceramic honeycomb. When it fills, and under towing loads it fills fast, the truck injects extra fuel to raise exhaust temperatures past 1100 degrees and burn the soot off. If the regen can't complete, soot hits 75% capacity and the truck enters limp mode. Speed capped at 45 miles per hour, mid-grade, mid-tow. Then 2010 added selective catalytic reduction, diesel exhaust fluid, a urea solution injected into the exhaust. If a sensor fails, the truck dials back power or refuses to start. In March 2026, the EPA itself issued guidance removing the DEF sensors requirement, acknowledging that sensor failures were causing trucks to shut down on highways and in farm fields. The agency that mandated the hardware admitted it was failing in exactly the conditions diesel trucks exist for. Think about what that means. A 1996 Ram with a 12-valve Cummins and a P7100, 160 horsepower, no computer, pulls a trailer up a mountain pass without complaint. A 2024 Ram with a 400 horsepower enters limp mode on the same grade because its particulate filter can't regenerate under load. The new truck makes 3 times the power. It also carries a DPF that costs up to $4,500 to replace, an EGR cooler that cracks and dumps coolant into the intake, and a DEF system with sensors the EPA just admitted don't work reliably. Clean examples sell for more than they cost new. The P7100 pumps are rebuilt and traded like currency. The Cummins High Mileage Club has over 10,000 members past 1 million miles, and the overwhelming majority are 12-valve 6BTs with mechanical injection. A community keeping an engine alive because the thing that replaced it can't do the job. Here's what this story actually is. It isn't about a bad regulation. The air is cleaner, and that matters. What it is a story about mandating complexity onto a machine whose entire value was simplicity. The 12-valve Cummins wasn't fast, it wasn't quiet, it wasn't clean. What it was unkillable under load, and no amount of horsepower and no number of sensors has been able to replace that. The engineers who designed the 6BT solved the towing problem completely. An iron block, a mechanical pump, forged internals, no electronics between the throttle and the fuel. The solution was so simple it lasted 1 million miles. What the industry replaced it with makes 500 horsepower and enters limp mode on a grade. And that is the end of the Workhorse. Not because the engine failed, but because the system around it decided simple wasn't allowed anymore. If your father towed with one of these, or if you're still running one, you already know. There really is nothing else that pulls quite like it. Subscribe if this is your kind of story. We cover engineering like this every week.